Hello guys, good afternoon. So it's afternoon here and our topic today is drug analysis. So first things first, let's talk about terminology. So drugs, a chemical substance that brings about physical changes, psychological changes, behavioral changes, physiological change in a person taking it. All medicine are drugs, but not all drugs are medicine. Okay, so our topic today is about drugs, and I won't elaborate on the types of drugs anymore, so you can have it in your lecture. So, in this topic class, what you're going to expect is we're talking about the analysis portion of your drugs. Actually, it's a very long topic if we're going to expand on analysis. Syempre, may pre-analysis ng drug testing. Ibig sabihin yung collection of the specimens and the reporting and quality control. Yan. It's so broad, this drug testing topic. However, I'm going to focus on the analysis part. So what are the tests that are involved in drug testing? And number two class, that's why we test drugs because many abuse it. Yan. Drug abuse, any non-medical use of drugs. So non-medical, so recreational or excessive use of drugs that cause physical, psychological, legal, economic, and social damage to the user's behavior. Yan. So class, I've been reading about drugs so much recently. And there's so much debate in this. Is it okay to use drugs, especially in the US? It's already legalized, like marijuana. And actually, some use it for medical purposes, but actually some use it recreationally. But hindi naman they are in the point of addiction. They are not in the point of addiction, but they just use it as someone as to boost their creativity. I know someone who use it regularly, but it's illegal here in the Philippines. And ayun, honestly, it's on them. And class, it's your choice, yeah. But class, in excess, there could be, yan, hindi natin may iwasan that there could be psychological, physiological impact of drug use, yan. So actually, diba, if you're taking drugs, diba, if you're taking, yan, of course, drugs causes euphoria, yan. Actually, you're, so it loses your sobriety. Syempre, hindi ka sober. So, ibig sabihin, you're not rational with your decision making. Anyway, so, that's for other time yun. Hahaba na yung discussion natin. So, just a short overview of our drugs. So, I just classified the drugs here. So, what are the drugs according to the legal classification based on Philippines law? So, yung batas na pinanghahawakan natin against mga anti-drug abuse natin or anti-drug campaign natin is RA 9165. So, Comprehensive Dangerous Act of 2002, and we have PD 1619. It's a law that regulates your volatile substances. Example, yung pinakasikat syempre dito sa Pilipinas is na volatile substance is rugby. Yan. But class, when my friends were in a party, they were offered with poppers. Yan, poppers. Actually, I don't know what poppers were. And they got it from a stranger. Sabi ko, friends, you have to be careful. Don't take drugs from strangers. You don't know what's the content of those. Buti walang nangyari sa kanila. Masama. But class, di ba? Actually, it's, I don't know if you knew the news, but back then there was this close-up concert and someone died. Actually, it was from our school. That person was from Baguio, wherein that that person bought some drugs in that concert. I don't think that's close up, parang ganun, close up concert something. And yun, the person died because the drug that they bought is a mix of different other drugs. And when they did an autopsy, the insides of that person was burned up, parang nasunog daw. Yan. According to international classification, we have narcotic substances. So these substances produces sleep, stupor, and relieves pain. So downer, basically. Psychotropic substances, which causes hallucination or effect on your psyche. And we have designer drugs. Yeah. So apparently, these designer drugs, this cal, cal, clandestine laboratory scientist class, they are the one who Claydenstein, I think, whatever, illegal scientists who are scientists doing illegal things, that they are manufacturing these drugs. Their purpose is to produce euphoria. So they are almost close to the controlled substances. So, marijuana is a controlled substance. So, gumagawa sila ng synthetic marijuana. Hallucinogens are controlled substances. However, these scientists are making synthetic hallucinogens, and so on. So, classification of drugs according to origin, we have natural drugs, so it's naturally made. It's from nature. And synthetic drugs, so it's made up of chemicals and it is made in the laboratory. So we have raw opium, ito. Yan, this is Papaver somniferum. Yan, ang cute ng... So, opium, so it's common in Afghanistan. And I don't know if it's true that because the US loves going to Afghanistan because Afghanistan is rich in opium, kunada. Next, we have marijuana, we have cannabis sativa, cannabis indica. So, cannabis sativa daw, actually, parang it energizes a person. It makes you euphoric. May high, pero more on energized. Pag indica daw, more on relaxed state. We have coca bush, erythroxylum coca. So, erythro, so red yung fruit no, nitong coca bush for cocaine. Diba? We have methamphetamine or shabu, yung bato, yan, 4 months cocaine. We have barbiturates. So barbiturates are sedatives, hypnotics, yan, relieves pain as well. And classification of drugs according to effects. So we have stimulants, caffeine, rin, cocaine. So class, I knew someone, yan, kwento siya sa akin, and he said he took cocaine, and I interviewed him what it feel like being high on cocaine. And he said that when you are high in cocaine, you feel like a winner, class. Kaya maraming na-addict daw sa cocaine. You feel like you're a winner. You feel like you're the most beautiful person, the most attractive person in the room. You feel like you can do anything. Yan. Kaya daw maraming mga palaos na daw na artista nagtitake ng cocaine. Yan. We have a hallucinogens. We have mescaline. Mescaline is from a cactus. Narcotics, codeine, heroin, morphine. So usually these are pain relievers, but in excess. Yan. Kaya pag in excess na, yan, people are prone to drug addiction kasi nga morphine, pain reliever eh. So if you want just to numb yourself, diba? We have sedatives or depressants, alcohols, and barbiturates. Mga class, maraming na-addict sa alcohol. Back then, when I was in college, I was addicted to alcohol, class, because it just made me feel good and make me forget about the reality. And we have here, chain of custody. So class, drug testing is very important. Actually, what I told you, it's very broad. Why? Because drug testing results are used in the court as court evidence. Because if someone, hindi basta-basta to, if someone is positive for in our confirmatory test for drugs, if a person is positive for a metabolite in drugs, in the drug testing class, there are legal implications. So, pwede kang makulong or pwede kang marehab. Yan. So, class, our testing in the laboratory is used as an evidence in the court. So, Class, so that there would be no questions with our drug testing, we should have these forms of chain of custody. So chronological documentation or paper trail showing the collection, transfer, receipt, analysis, storage, and disposal of the sample. This ensures that any results we report relate beyond all reasonable doubt to a particular individual. So class, if we released a result that the person is positive for our drug testing, yan, and we have the chain of custody as a form, or it's complete, yan, and it's legal, yan. So, meaning, our 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 testing is true. Yan eh. It would not be used against us. So if the result should ever need to be used in court as an evidence, our chain of custody records are fully defensible and can disprove any allegation of tampering or misconduct. So class, so people with malicious intent can tamper evidence. Yan. So, pwede nilang lagyan ng maraming tubig yung ihe or replace it with a new sample. Yan. So to remove all those doubts, we have chain of custody that the sample or specimen in the result was processed properly, it was transported with such care, may mga, that the specimen is really from the person that was in the court, ganun. Okay. So class, for the sample specimens for drug analysis in the Philippines, what we use is urine. Yan. Actually, we don't use yet blood, scalp, hair, saliva, sweat tissue, and fingernails because there is the need to standardize the test. But as of now, here in the Philippines, we always use the urine as a type of sample. So it's very easy to be acquired. So, marami siyang advantages. So, please review our table. So, urine. So, class, dapat in a single container, it should have 60 ml. Nothing less than 60, hopefully. Yan. Kung hindi niya kayang mag 60 ml na ihe class, you have to allow them to return some other day. Yan. Because they need, or you have to give them time to urinate again and drink lots of water, or they should be informed beforehand that they should be drinking so much water because in a container it should be 60 ml, or if not 30 ml in each separate container, which was draw at the same time. At the same time, syempre hindi na yung pangalawa, hindi yung coming days, baka naman hindi na ma-detect yung drugs by that time. So class, yun. And class, if it's only stored for 1 day, so refrigerator temperature is okay, 2 to 6 degrees Celsius. However, if it would take a very long time, so negative 20 degrees Celsius. Yan. For blood, we need at least 5 ml. It should be in serum form. Yan, yung serum yung kukunin natin, then freeze it. For scalp hair, we have 100 milligrams of hair or 1 centimeter above the scalp. So class, scalp hair sana is very good for people who are chronically using drugs. However, it's not yet standardized here in the Philippines and must be stored at a cool, dry place. For saliva, it is 2 ml. So 2 ml. So at least 1.5 ml for the primary specimen and 0.5 ml for the challenge test. So class, we have this term challenge test. So challenge test is another set of testing wherein we are confirming the results or for confirmatory testing. So it should be deep frozen at least negative 8 to negative 10 degrees Celsius. We have sweat, a patch, yan. So a patch that was given by the drug testing facility will be worn for 7 to 14 days. For tissue, it is stored via storage and handling. So class, So we have two phases of your drug testing laboratory. So first one is your screening phase. Yan. And the second one is confirmatory phase. So class, actually, if you want to be a drug analyst, you have to train for it. Yan, drug analyst. Me, I was trained as a drug analyst but I never used it. Kaya hindi ko masyadong gamay. I did not have hands-on experience with analyzing drug. So, class, that's just my advice to you that I know that you have budget for being a drug analyst, HIV analyst, yan, water analyst pa. Ang raming pwedeng certifications na pwedeng i-take, guys. And so, if you're going to get one, make sure you're going to use it kasi sayang yung pera. So, yun, nag-test ako to be an analyst in a nag-test ako, nagpa-certify ako. Yan. So, I went to a screening drug testing laboratory. I trained to become a screening drug testing analyst class. So, nag-offer ang East Avenue Medical Center. So, this is the National Reference Lab for drug testing. So, class, yun, a laboratory performs. So, what does SDTL, what do they do? A laboratory that performs a validated test to differentiate negative specimen from a specimen that requires further testing for a drug or metabolite. So class, if a patient becomes positive or produces a positive result in a screening drug testing laboratory, actually they are not confirmatory positive yet. So to confirm it, we should take that sample to a confirmatory testing phase or confirmatory phase. That's why we need about 60 ml of urine because we will send that 30 ml to the confirmatory lab, which is your East Avenue Medical Center. So first, in Baguio, in your provinces, which does screening drug tests, usually those are just screening tests. Yan. So, if you are negative for the screening test, they will tell you immediately. However, if you will be positive in the screening portion, it could last long. So, they should send your specimen for confirmatory sa East Avenue Medical Center. Yan. So class, in a SDTL, we use drug kits, drug testing kits, which must be approved by your FDA, Food and Drug Administration. So class, ang ginagamit talaga natin is drug kits. However, we have screening methods that utilizes instruments. So we have immunoassay and chromatography. So for immunoassay, we have radioimmunoassay. They utilize isotopes and radioactive isotopes. We have EIA, yan, example is ELISA. Anong ibig sabihin ng ELISA? Kayo naman yan. We have fluoroimmunoassay. So, anong sabihin ng FPIA? We have chemiluminescent immunoassay and latex agglutination inhibition. So, class, I hope these are familiar from your serology. Yan. Next, we have chromatography. So, when we talk about chromatography, it's about separation of your different substances. So, we have planar chromatography, liquid chromatography, and gas chromatography. So, these are screening analytical techniques. However, we're going to focus on drug test kits. So if you're going to test, usually in the Philippines, what we use are cartridges, something that looks like this. And sakto, ito ata yung sa Pilipinas kasi usually we test these two analytes. We have methamphetamine and THC. We have tetrahydrocannabinol and metabolite from your marijuana. So, ito yung ginagamit natin madalas. So I don't know if FDA in Philippines, in FDA, they already approve something like this, that so you would just put the urine in this cup and this cup will already show the results. Yan, galing no? And class, we also have something that looks like this. And this is amazing because it could test 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yan, 5 drug metabolites. Yan, ang alam ko lang to, barbiturate, ata, oxytocin. Yan. So, oxycodone, sorry, oxytocin. Ayan. So, anyway, class. So, these are the different drug test kits. So, for this discussion, ito yung magpo-focus tayo dito. So, class, what is your drug test kit? So, what's good about them is it's easy, it's fast, it's only qualitative. So, ang interpretation niya, positive, negative, or invalid. Yan. It is visually read without an instrument needed. Yan. So what the principle is competitive binding, enzyme link immunosorbent assay, competitive binding. So based upon the competition of labeled and unlabeled ligand for a limited number of antibody sightings, antibody binding sites. So class, basically, there's a competition happening. Yan. At ano ba yung magko-compete? So, malalaman natin ang principle niyan. You know, class, one of my favorite subjects is serology. So, I made this for you. So, class, every drug kit will have inside the pads are antibody-coated. It is antibody-coated pad. Yan, hindi well. Kasi well, usually mga maliit na lalagyan. So, antibody-coated pad. So, in those test kits are pads. Yan. And so it's embedded in your test kit. So, we will show here what does a positive result look like and what does a negative result look like. Okay? So, yun nga. So, in this test kit, yan, may antibody-coated well. So, these antibodies are already attached in the pad. Yan. So, ito yung mga test kit natin. And inside those test kits class are enzyme-labeled antigens. Yan. Enzyme labeled ligand. Pero para sa madaling salita, itong mga ito, antigen to class na labeled na enzyme. Yan, they are labeled with enzyme. Class, para magka-color ang enzyme, kailangan niya mag-bind sa substrate, 'di ba? Based sa enzyme reaction. So, para magkaroon ng color development, enzyme plus substrate equals color development. So, class, magkakaroon ng color development sa test kit natin, magkakaroon ng band kung nag-bind ang enzyme at substrate, ha? Just take note of that. So, para mag-positive result, class, so positive result, when we say positive result, the person is positive for drug analytes. When we say negative results, negative result, the person is negative for drug metabolite. But class, I just want you to know that your test kits has a detection limit. Yan. So even though you take drugs, but the quantity is it's so low, it's so low that it will result as negative. So even though you take drugs, pero it's not on a regular basis, at hindi pasok sa detection limit ni drug kit, you will have a negative result. But if you take drugs talaga, and it is detected by the detection limit, if it will reach the detection threshold of the drug test, then you will have a positive result. So if you will have, example, so in this urine class, it's positive for drug metabolites. So I represented it with letter D. So for the negative result, so there's no drug metabolite. Malinis. So there is there is now competition here among your antigens. So ang nagko-compete dito are si antibody labeled with enzyme and antigen, mga antigen tong mga to. So, antigen labeled with enzyme at yung antigen natin, which are your drug metabolites. So, they will compete subspaces ng antibody-coated. Well, yan. So, class, due to law of mass action, the drug metabolites are the one that attaches to the antibody-coated well at naiitsapwera si enzyme. In the when metabolites are positive were present in the urine, so ito yung nangyayari pag positive ang result. But class, when in a negative result, of course there are no drug metabolite, or the drug metabolites are so scarce, sobrang konti nila, that your antigen labeled enzymes are attaching to your antibody forming a complex. Yan. So, gumawa sila ng complex. Okay? Then, class, so for step 3, so, yun nga, nag-attach yung mga drug metabolites sa antibody natin. So, class, when substrate comes, it will not attach to anything. Yan. But here, in your negative result, since your enzyme form a complex with your antibody, it attaches to the complex. Yan. So, your substrate only attaches to the enzyme antibody complex. So, pag ito yung antibody, ito yung enzyme, ang tawag dito antigen-antibody complex. So, your substrate is attracted to this. So, it will bind to the complex. So, what will happen? So, I told you a while ago that when enzyme and substrate will bind together, it will form a colored product. So, for negative results, guys, it is with color development. It will show a rose-pink band. So, if it's a negative result, there is a band. But if it's a positive result, class, there is no color development. So, every time, class, that you will hear the word competitive, competitive, or the word inhibition, usually positive results have no color. Pag narinig nyo na yung word na competitive or inhibition, so the positive results have no color, but the negative results have a color. Okay? So, let's natin for the sake of discussion. So, this is what happened in your drug test kit. So, in your pad, we have antibodies attached to it. Antibody attached to it. So, there are binding sites ready for attaching. So, class, so in your test kits, we also have labeled antibodies. So, these are enzyme labeled antibodies on antibodies, antigen. So, these are enzyme-labeled antigens. So, class, so for positive results, so expect that there should be a drug analyte on the urine. However, to make a negative result, syempre, there should be no drug metabolite in the urine or very low levels of drug analyte that it will not be detected by your drug test kit. Very low. I'll show you the cutoff levels later. So, class, due to competitive binding tayo, so your drug metabolites will take the place in the binding sites of your antibody. For negative results, since they do not have any competition, the antigen enzyme-labeled antigens will attach to your binding site. And now, so the substrates will bind the antibody antigen complex. So if your substrate will attach to the complex, it will form a color. There will be a color development, which is a rose-pink band. So that's a negative result. However, positive results will show no band. Okay? So class, yun. So T means the test zone and C means the control zone. Sabi niya, if the concentration of drug is below the cut-off detection limit, if yan, is below the cutoff. Yan, tama. Below, masyadong mababa. It will develop a rose pink band, di ba? So, pag may rose pink na band, di ba, it's a negative result. But class, if the concentration of drug is above the cutoff detection, so maraming drug metabolites, there will be no development of a rose pink color band. Yan, in the T zone or test zone. Yan. So dito, it's a positive result because no development of a rose pink color band. Yan. So class, we also have a control zone or a C zone. So class, in every test that we do, dapat your C zone should always have a band. Yan. Your C zone should always have a band or else it's an invalid result. Yan. So class, your C is very important. So it's a built-in quality control measure. Yan. So it assess if your if your kit is not expired or the reagents there are still active. Yun. So kung walang linya class, tapon nyo na yung test kit nyo, it's invalid. But here, class, this is a positive result because there's no development of band and there's a positive band in your C zone. Here, class, negative kasi may band. So, class, a faint band is a negative result. Okay? So, sabi ni scientist, faint band is interpreted as a negative result. So, class, your testing would look something like this. But if the laboratory purchase a different test kit, yung mga ganito, bakit dinidip? And now, class, so once a person becomes positive in the screening phase, the laboratory should send it to the National Reference Lab, which is your East Avenue Medical Center. Yan. East Avenue Medical Center. So the confirmatory phase is the secondary analytical procedure to ensure reliability and accuracy. Why? Because class, some of the kits will have false positive results, especially if you are taking other medications. Yan, other medications. Class, alam nyo, that when I was training, the trainer said that a doctor became positive in the screening test. Yan, the doctor became positive in the screening test and positive in the confirmatory test. And actually, the doctor took it to court because if a doctor is taking drugs, they could have their license revoked. Yan, pwede matanggal yung lisensya nila. So the doctor's alibi, class, was that perhaps she was positive in drug test because she was taking these slimming pills daw. Sabi niya, baka naman dahil sa slimming pills, kaya ako nag-positive. But class, that secondary screening tests have actually high level of detection limit. Ibig sabihin, pag recreational use ka lang nagtitake ng drugs, hindi palagi, negative ka talaga sa drug screening test. However, if there is really abuse of the use of drug, talagang magpa-positive ka sa screening test natin. So, ayun, that the doctor, whatever she's using, she's not using it for recreation or leisure or it's not accidental. Ayan. She's really taking it regularly. Like Kiefer Ravena, yan. Di man lang naparusahan. Yeah, I think yan, he was positive. And his alibi naman, class, was due to the sports drink he was drinking. So, ang gusto kong sabihin sa inyo, class, hindi kayo magpa-positive sa screening test kung hindi nyo tinitake ang isang drug in excess. Yan. So, basta may tinitake sila na in excess, kaya sila nagpa-positive sa screening test. Kasi class, medyo mataas yung detection limit ng drug testing kit. Hindi siya sobrang sensitive. Ibig sabihin, it cannot detect very little amount of drug metabolites. Yan. It could, I'll show you the cutoff limits. By the end of this by then sa end. So class, the confirmatory test, huwag nyo kakalimutan to, is GCMS, gas chromatography, mass spectrophotometry method. So we have two methods that they are doing for confirmatory phase. So class, not all laboratory have gas chromatography, not all of them has mass chromatography. So usually we send our drug tests to East Avenue Medical Center for confirmatory. So class, pag negative sa screening test, hindi na dinadala sa East Avenue. Pero pag nag-positive sa screening test, dinadala sa East Avenue Medical Center. Yan. But class, the patient do not have to pay more for confirmatory test. So for gas chromatography, so it's a separation technique for volatile substances. Yan. So gas chromatography is used for separation. Mass chromatography is used for quantitation. Yan. So class, so for GC instrument, here are the parts. Tapos yung MS instrument natin, gas carrier, injection port, column. Yan, may column, detector, data processor. MS instrument, mass spectrophotometry. Oops, class, mass spectrophotometry to, ha? So class, inlet system, ion source. So class, your mass spectrophotometry converts the substance into ions. Tapos ions yung i-measure niya. Yung mass ng ions. Yan. So gas chromatography coupled with mass spectrophotometry, it is used to separate and quantify your compounds. By combining, so it's very sensitive. Yan. Ito rin mataas ang sensitivity, high resolving power, complex mixture can be analyzed. The information obtained can be used for detection of impurities, contamination. Yan. So class, we need to do a confirmatory test just to make sure that there were no contamination, impurity, adulteration of our sample. So just to give you an image, ang ganda naman, simple lang. So this is your gas inlet, yung gas natin, tapos sample injector. So it will move to a column in your gas chromatography, tapos ma-ionized. So hiniwalay yung analyte of choice, example methamphetamine, ma-ionize yung methamphetamine, tapos i-analyze yung mass no methamphetamine. So just like here, we have a carrier gas inlet, injector. It will pass through the columns of your gas chromatography where your substances will be separated from one another. Then it will pass to this ion source. So it will be converted into ions. Ang galing, class. So each one, when we say ions, it has a charge. So magkakaroon na silang charge. And now the mass analyzer could measure the charge or the particles, and it will be detected through your machine. Yan. So these are, guys, we're almost done. So these are your cut-offs and windows of detection in your urine. So class, so marijuana. So your marijuana, especially if you've taken so much, class. So, actually, ang bilis na mawala. Kung konti lang tinik mo, 2 days, wala na siya circulation mo. But if you are really addict to marijuana, it could lead up to 3. It could stay in your body up to 3 weeks. Yan. So, for initial screening, class, you should have at least 50 nanograms of per ml in your urine. 50 nanograms of tetrahydrocannabinol in your urine. Yan. So actually, mataas naman to. Mataas to, guys. At marami to. So, and confirmation for confirmatory test, pag GCMS, at least 15 positive ka na talaga sa marijuana. So, ito yung hinighlightan ko kasi marijuana, THC naman yung madalas sinetest sa Pilipinas at methamphetamine. So, methamphetamine, actually, shabu, it could only last in your body up to 2 to 3 days. So, ang mga nagpa-positive talaga sa mga tuklas, mga addict talaga. Yan. Initial screen, 500 nanograms per ml and confirmation, 250 nanograms per ml. Yan. So, class, thank you for listening and I'll see you again. And meeting.